So, welcome, Charlie. As we were just saying, it's been a while.
Thanks, Penny. Yeah, it has been a while. I feel like I haven't actually seen you for several years, but thanks for having me on this. And it is always nice to see you because you're one of those people who always has an amazing smile, but also inspires me. Um,
Oh, well, ditto.
True, it's true.
Ditto.
So, what do you want to talk about today?
Niche.
Yeah,
But the reason I wanted to speak to you today, not only because it's always fab, but also a question that's come up a few times, and it came up in a masterclass last week, is about how do you niche, or how is niche even possible when you are I think I'm saying this right, like a multi hyphenate. So you do many different things and you do many different things. But I
yeah.
also think that you niche down. I wanted to, yeah, I wanted to speak to you today about that. And I think the general story about how you do things will help answer that question, I think,
I
at
think the
length
first
in
one's
this
really, really,
conversation.
really interesting. And I think that you can actually do a lot of different things and very much define your niche. And I think in many ways, that's what I do best through all of our businesses. So we have a huge range of businesses. They're all quite small, but from restaurants, pubs, events, holiday houses. We run a walled garden school where we teach people about craft and food, and we run maybe we employ maybe about I employ maybe about 100 people, and all of these businesses fundamentally are exactly the same, doing different things. And I think that the niche comes from the real me really pursuing my true aesthetic and leadership vision. And I don't always get it right. I mean, I'm always very cautious when it comes to these things to say that I am right. But I think that I have the taste and the ideas that drive our business. And so I think if you went into one of my holiday houses or you encountered one of my staff in a pub or a restaurant or indeed a shop, or you looked at the walls in those pubs or restaurants, or you went to one of our events or you went to one of our lessons, I think that you would find that there was a very similar vibe to them. And I think that vibe applies in two ways. I think it's the people and the space, the physical space. And
Yeah.
I've always said in terms of the physical space that I don't think that I necessarily have better taste than anyone, but I just have the taste that drives our business. And it has to be uncompromising. And I think that's where the niche comes from, is that I have an absolutely clear aesthetic vision and I am good at bringing that vision to life. And I would not for a second say that it's as I say that it's better than anyone else's, but I don't allow other people to impose their vision on it, because I think if I do, it becomes watered down. And I think the idea of designing by committee is a really, really weak one. And I was always inspired by Terence Conran, who I believe when he was choosing products for his endless projects, which were also quite niche, there was no grey area. A product was either right or it was wrong. It was either black or it was white. And I really believe in that. And I think that increasingly I am learning that niche is even further refined by, in my sort of businesses, if I don't believe in it, if I wouldn't buy it, if I wouldn't eat it, if I wouldn't experience it, then it is not right. And I've really learned that. And I think that's a real lesson for this niche idea, is that at my scale, you have to believe in it. And the minute you don't believe in it, the niche is gone. And in fact, I've had this experience, I've experienced this because when I've maybe employed the wrong people at the head of a business, or indeed when I sold our homewares business to private investors, but that was peddlers to private
Yeah.
investors, I was still involved in it. It wasn't their fault, but they were trying to dilute what I brought to it and tell me to do other things. And I felt that even if I understood what they were saying and agreed with it, which I didn't always, I felt that it was just being compromised. And
Yeah.
they were telling, getting proper SEO writers in to write copy, for example, was actually fundamentally disastrous to the business, because I'd written all the copy up to that point. And the business had a clear voice and a clear personality. And that was the definition of the niche. And so I think that that more than anything else is what you have to do. I think a niche doesn't have to mean that you are only concentrating on selling smoky bacon, or you're only concentrating on selling leather goods for under £300. It has to mean that everything that you do is driven by a number of very clear guiding principles. And it's taken us a long time to get all of these things right. And by nature, you're always shifting and changing and evolving. Taste changes and evolves. What's available in the market changes and evolves. Ways of doing things, ways of serving food, ways of cooking food evolve. But ultimately, I think it's that taste. And then also latterly, I've become interested in this idea of empowering people through gentle leadership. And I think these two are related, because what we have to understand is that in terms of, I have my tastes and that drives the thing, but it isn't about me saying your opinion isn't valuable. It's about me saying you bring your other skills to bear. My taste will drive the business. So if you're a copywriter or a photographer or a designer or a graphic designer or a stylist or a marketing person or a finance person or a butcher or a baker or a whatever, you work behind that aesthetic vision. That isn't you bring your skills to bear. If you're an amazing barista, you tell me how best to serve the coffee, but I will tell you what the bar will look like, what cups we'll serve it from, what your uniform will be, but you bring your skills in. That sounds a bit crass, but the barista example, but I think, there's huge room for great skills to coalesce around that aesthetic vision.
And don't you think when you're so strong in the gentle leadership of that aesthetic vision, that you also then attract those people that would want to work in that style? Like, that's the other thing.
There.
When you're really clear on it, you're more likely to attract the people that want to work in that way.
I mean, I think that the lesson that I've learned is more and more is that with gentle leadership, you also have to be incredibly firm. And I think that this is the key thing, is that sometimes my ideas about gentle leadership, which are really based around the idea that everyone is as important as everyone else, that everyone is someone's partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, sister, brother, daughter, whatever, and therefore no one is less important than you as the boss. I think it can sometimes come across as a bit of a potentially a sort of hippie manifestos that, hey man, we're all great friends and we're all equal. But far from it. I think it's what I've really learned is that kindness and compassion is one side of it, but really the duty to make the business work actually requires much more clarity. And some of the people that I've started working with in the last few years have really helped me to understand this, by us really beginning to realize that you have to have absolute clarity of purpose and leadership, and you have to really tell people what is expected of them, and you have to have, as it were, very clear kind of HR policies, and that people can't. Not everyone is fundamentally entrepreneurial, but even if they are, you can't have room for total entrepreneurship within a business, or you've got 100 different people doing things in their own way and no clarity. So I think that our gentle leadership values people, I hope, but also it should empower them through real clarity of vision and really through making it very clear what's expected of them and who they report to, and all of those kind of things that are seen as maybe slightly boring,
But I think when people know where they stand, because I was always a rebellion against structure, and now I just absolutely love it. Because I think once you've got structure and boundaries and rules in place, you can be much more free to express and experiment and try and create and do things within that space, rather than just like a free sort of blowing in the wind.
I agree.
So I think it counterintuitively promotes creative thought more and space more, because you just know where you stand.
You do, and of course you need to know precisely what is expected of you, because otherwise you can't do your job. Because if you I mean, I can't think of quite how to express this, but if you give someone a bit of paper and a pen and say, do a drawing, and they do a drawing of a car, and then you say, no, I wanted you to draw a sheep, then you really can't blame them. So you've got to say, draw a sheep and make it look like this. But I think there's also this incredible weakness of people not wanting to correct people when they don't get things wrong, because people are very worried about confrontation and don't like upsetting people. And of course, the world is split into millions of different types of people. Broadly speaking, I think there are people who like confrontation and people who don't like confrontation. I think the majority of people that I hang out with don't like confrontation. And I think that they mistake that for just the correcting of things. I think it's incredibly important to be able to say, you haven't got this right, Penny. I need you to do it like this. Or you're late again. I just can't have you being late. And I think that has to start from day one. And I had this thing in my do book about treating your new team members, whoever they are, like a puppy. And there's this tendency when you get a puppy to go, oh, she's so cute and sweet, and I'm not, and she's just weeing inside a little bit, and I won't berate her. But actually, if you tell the dog on day one that she's not meant to wee inside, she's going to, not only is she going to understand very quickly what isn't expected of her, but she's not going to be confused.
Yeah.
And I think there's a real tendency with new people just to be sort of try to be super nice and let them wander around. And you're right, we all need boundaries, and it's probably, the essence of a certain type of widely accepted education, or indeed even bringing up kids, is that as a parent, is that people need boundaries.
But it's interesting that what you stand for both your team and your staff, but it's also for then the audience or the customers or who you're trying to attract as well. It's like both the boundaries count there as well. Like, this is what I do, this is what we do, and this is what we don't do with what you're selling or what you're getting people to come to as well. It's being not worried to put people off or to be confrontational about that as well, both inside and outside.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really thinking, this is really interesting, because I've been thinking about this a lot recently, because there's this great dichotomy between wanting to do things really well, by which I mean sell stuff that's properly made, employ people at above minimum wage, give proper holidays and look after your staff, and the cost of living issue. And what we've had to recognize is that if we want to really truly do what we do well, we have to charge the right amount for it, and we have to find the audience. And I think that is a really interesting niche thing. And actually, we kind of never really got this right with our festival, The Good Life Experience, because we set out and we had a very clear niche as to what we were doing. We were doing things that led into making what we considered to be the good life. So in this case, it was music, sure, but it was also food, craft, nature, and ideas. And we had a very clear niche, and we grew very quickly. But what we didn't have was a clear niche price proposition. And initially, we started out with our plan was to sell loads of tickets at a small cost. And after a bit, we realized this simply wasn't working. We were getting 6,000 or 7,000 people, and they were paying under £100. And it wasn't working at all. So we tried to reverse out of that, and we never. If I'm honest, I don't think we ever really truly succeeded. So in reversing out, what we were trying to do was to get less people at a higher ticket price, because that became a much more desirable niche for us, because the other niche of having lots of people cheaply was exhausting all the team, messing up the environment, and taking everyone away who worked for us from their normal jobs for about a month. And so our business would, the tremors would be felt for months either side of it, of people being exhausted and the environment.
Just on the scale of it.
Yeah. And so, we tried to go smaller and more expensive. And actually, it's nearly impossible to reverse out of that, because you can't say one day I'm making these leather belts and they cost 30 quid. And then the next day say I've decided to make the leather belts and actually I'm going to make them pay 100. They're going to be £300. And so there are so many different dimensions to niche. And I think that the one thing that everyone that I mentor, all the people that I mentor, that the niche that they are most frightened of is the niche of charging what they need to charge.
Interesting.
And I mean, I'm the same, because you want to be apologetic about price, and of course you want to have everyone coming to the thing, don't you? But it's never stopped the right hotels, restaurants, retailers from doing really well, who do what they do. I mean, and charging high margin, and I admire people who get that right, but you have to do it from the off.
Well, and also when it's for the right reasons, which for you, how you're describing it is, like it's not profit for profit's sake. It's so that you can do it well, not mess up the environment, not take the people
Yes, I
away,
think
be
that's
able
right.
to keep a handle on it.
But I would say that anyone who's doing small business, and I'm not talking about kind of Louis Vuitton here, or
Yeah,
kind of some massive hotel chain, but I think anyone who's doing good things in a small business, it's seriously tough. And I think that I suppose my point is, the earlier you can define the full proposition of your niche, what you do, what you don't do, and how you do it and how you don't do it, and then what you charge and what
yeah,
you don't charge is critical.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that so I'm saying, I think with the Good Life experience, it's very interesting, and it's led to really good things now, but it's taken 10 years. We had a very clear proposition on paper as to what we were and how we did it and who we attracted, but we didn't have a clear enough price proposition. And I
Interesting.
think if we'd had that niche of price from day one, we could have really made it work. And if we'd said,
And
you know what, in year one, we only need to get 300 people, but we're going to charge 300 quid rather than 1,000 people and charge 100 quid, or whatever the
yeah.
maths is. So I think, it's funny, isn't it, that niche isn't just one thing. It's all those different things that go into business.
I believe so. That's why when it's the whole thing about, is it too small and limiting? I think no, it's you just get really deep with it, and it just enriches. Because has what you described there with the Good Life, is that now what's fed really well for Glendy?
I think the Good Life has led us into this amazing thing in North Wales called Summer Camp, which is doing really well.
Ah, yes, yes,
And so that's definitely, so that is now a series. This next year there'll be 4 weekend long events with about 125 people at a much higher ticket price. And that would not exist if it wasn't for the Good Life. So that's just become that manifestation of it. But it took us much longer to reverse out of that price proposition than I think we thought it would do. And then COVID came along, and that's another kind of dimension. But I think that, all of us. So Glendy is not the most recent thing we've done, but it is certainly one of the most successful, and that's a series of 11 holiday cabins and cottages in Kincardineshire in Scotland. And we have a wild wellness and bushcraft school attached to it, and that means that you can come and learn how to light a fire or go wild swimming and foraging and all that sort of thing. And then we have an event space and a little shop there. And that's going really well. And what's interesting about that, of course, is that all these other things always lead to the next thing. And,
yeah,
and that's what happens. You get wiser, you get smarter, ideas open up. And that's actually, I mean, without going too deep into the history of that, we've been restoring that estate for 35 years, Caroline and I, and we've eventually got there. And then we launched the holiday houses. But what was so good, and what really plays into what I was just saying, is that we decided from day one that we would try to make the best holiday cottages in Scotland. And that meant self-catering, and we had a very clear aesthetic vision, and the houses are beautiful and the places are amazing.
they are.
And we employed a really good small team, and we just said, to do that, we're going to be much more expensive than our neighbours. So a lot of our neighbouring competitors, we are 2 or 3 times more expensive, but we are 10 times better. And we have some months where we're 100% full, so across 11 properties. And I think that is simply because that's our proposition. We're not, anyone that runs small business, you'll know this, we are not creaming the cash in. It's just not like that. But, in order to be profitable, it has to be expensive. And I think if we had done it really beautifully and added on the school and said, "Oh, but we're worried because the average price is
Yeah,
£400 for a week and we're 1,000, then we wouldn't have a niche, we wouldn't have a business. And I
I
think that
love that.
that's it's just super diluted, and that's really what that's what the world has become, is just super diluted. And this is where people who follow your principle of the niche are the ones who, it's certainly in it doesn't matter if it's big or small business, are the ones who are going to absolutely smash it. I mean, a niche can be a chain of 100 hotels, provided that people know that when they go to that hotel, this is what they get or this is what they don't get. It doesn't matter whether it's a £50 a night bedroom or £1,000 a night bedroom. You can still have the niche, but you've got to have the clarity,
Yeah.
and you better make sure, if you're the £1,000 one, that you deliver, you know, hellishly good service.
Well, I was listening to you did a superb solstice radio for Camp Glendy or Glendy cottages. And it's now on the website. I'll put it in the show notes, but there's an episode where you talk about how you've built and restored that place up as well, like how much heart's gone into that, and how you wanted to get the interesting people there. Because I think that's another part of your niche is these people, bringing people together with creativity and ideas, and often in nature,
Yes,
with a
yeah. I
very
mean,
entrepreneurial spirit as well.
well, there are a lot of things there, Penny. I mean, the first thing is that for me, the most useful thing that school and university did was allow me to begin to understand how to put on productions. So I directed and produced plays when I was at school, and then I did the same at university, and I did a nightclub at university, and
I can see you doing that.
that what that really did was just teach me that was essentially entrepreneurial. You do a play at university. I don't know what the budget was like. I can't even remember how you got the money, but anyway, I only get the money from a drama society. It'd probably be like £200, and then you had to, get the cast, book a venue, direct the play, make the posters, sell the tickets, get someone to do lighting, get someone to do sound, and on and on and on. And that was such an amazing education for me, and because it taught me that actually you can create these things, and you could, and so you're really kind of, so that was the beginning of it. And so I didn't really have any fear. And I think you have to have no fear to be entrepreneurial. And anyway, then I had my own business in music. And then Caroline and I decided we didn't want to live in London. So we sold our house and moved to Glendy. And then the journey that you're describing of trying to restore that place was, I'm glad we've done it now, but I can honestly tell you that it nearly physically and mentally killed me.
Yeah.
It was so, I was, I was so, the place was so ruined, and I was so badly in debt, and I was trying to earn money through music and also try and restore it all. Anyway, eventually we kind of got through it and broke the back of it, and here we are now. But it has taught me that whether you've got a niche or not, everyone always thinks that making up these little businesses is so easy and that you'll make money within year one. And I mean, as I'm sure that lots of people who are listening to this know, it is so difficult. And you've just, I think, to be successful entrepreneur, you've got to have a great niche, you've got to have great energy, you've got to have great luck, you've got to have a really supportive bank, and all of those things are really important. But you've also just got to be unbelievably frigging tough, because I think that there are days that I had to get up and dust myself down, and that I felt absolutely broken by the pressure. Are really quite a lot of them, quite a lot of them. And even now, I mean, still, I still feel that hard work isn't everything. By the way, it really isn't everything, because if you haven't got the money or the niche or the way of connecting with customers, but there are so many components. But hard work is my God, you've got to be prepared for brutal
But I
times.
also think you talk about like being tough, but also I find for myself, and I think I do hear this from other people really as well. It's like it's knowing yourself as well. Like you want to do something in a particular way. Like I've always really struggled, like being in a job or having anyway. I've always ended up where I'm just so sure of how I want things to be done or questioning how things are done. And I want to create something differently. And that's something that's run through everything that I've done. It's sort of like even though it's super hard and tough and there are those days, it's almost not a choice. Like,
I know what you mean, and actually, I mean, I
it's,
can see it in you completely. I've always seen it in you. I mean, I think there is an individual and an individualism and a determination, and I think that probably at root is about having. I think it's about having two strong things. One is a very clear view of who
yeah.
you are and want to be, and I think it really does help to be comfortable in your own skin. And I don't know how that happens. I don't. I had quite a lot of angst as a young child and no teenage angst at all. And by the time I was about 14, I knew exactly what I stood for and who I was. And I think there's a great deal of luck in that. But then the other thing is just having this absolute determination to do things in your own way. And that really involves, more than anything else, having no fear, I think, doesn't it?
Well, and a full belief, like that things should be done differently.
Yes.
Whether it's places just aren't done well enough for like a full sensory experience. Like I just went to Iceland and it was like the attention to detail there is like that's what you feel
Mm.
at your places as well. It's like every little thing is touched and it was so beautiful.
Yeah. I
like
mean,
you, and
yeah,
it's that it is possible, and when it's done I think you really feel it, and if you're aware of it when it's not done you also feel it.
I
So
agree.
whether
Yeah.
it's caring the people or the environment, and I think it's that caring the people and the environment that you do
But
and that
again,
we're
you have to be
driven
driven.
by.
You have to be driven. I mean,
Totally
I
driven
can't.
by.
I mean, I've been actually having a bit of a kind of freak out this morning because there are a few things that I came across with in one of our businesses this morning that really got me annoyed. And I think that the day that I stop being annoyed, it'll be time to put me out to grass because, you know, if you're someone like me and you go into a business and there's nothing wrong with it, then you're not doing your job because you need to be able to say and I will say this is all great, but why is the music not loud enough over there? Why is that table still dirty? Why are those things facing in that direction when they should be facing this direction? And I think you have to have that very, very clear view of who you are and what you want, and you've got to be slightly mad, I think. I mean, I mean, I do recognize in myself, I have a kind of restlessness,
Yeah.
which is unusual. But I mean, I'm super driven to make things look beautiful and to make my customers have a nice time. And obviously, I don't always get it right, but I think it's so interesting, isn't it, that we've divided the world in a weird way into kind of the world of retail and restaurants and hospitality into two worlds. It's like basic and kind of luxury or upmarket, right? But it doesn't cost any more to give great service. So I think that you don't have to be some kind of super luxury retailer to have an amazing person saying, "How are you? Can I help you? That's not a problem. We can do this. We can do that." Whereas you so often go into a business and you're just not treated with the kind of real passion that comes from this idea that is only kind of that you can only get great service if it's expensive.
Yeah.
There's nothing to stop great service in Nando's. It's no different to a 50 times more expensive restaurant, provided that you're empowering your staff and making the place a good place. And I mean, I was in a shop in Manchester this year. It was a really swanky clothes shop, and actually, it transpired that it was owned by the same people who own End Clothing. Probably shouldn't name names, but I was trying on a jacket, and the guy said to me, "I absolutely love that jacket." And I said, "Well, you must get a good staff discount." And he said, "No, no, we just paid minimum wage here." And there was some terrible dichotomy in my mind between me being able to buy a £350 jacket on a whim and the guy serving me being paid whatever he was being paid, I don't know what it was, and not having a staff discount. And I mean, I'm
Well, and
kind of,
also for him to say that as well,
yeah,
like,
because he was pissed off, wasn't he?
yeah, that's what I mean. So if you're doing the empowering, no one's feeling it. They don't have that intention, so they're not saying that stuff.
No, he wasn't
And
in
he
the
was
mood
right.
at
He
all.
was right to be pissed off.
He was a nice, he was also a really nice, nice guy. I mean, he was like, he wanted a chat, and and he wasn't sort of spitting venom and saying, he wasn't doing that at all. He was just saying, I might as well be working in Tesco or cleaning at the zoo. It's no different.
And it's funny because they'll spend all this time on everything else, making it look perfect and but we remember the human interactions more than anything, I think.
More than anything. And they're the ones that cost very, very little.
And the stories that you share, like, you're not telling me how beautiful the place was or all the different things.
No,
It's like,
exactly.
I had this, this was the story. This is what happened. This is what you said. And that's what gets shared.
Well, there are terrific and interesting challenges now to bring human personality to any business that operates largely over the web as well. I mean, I think that,
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think that WhatsApp is a game changer for that. And I think a
Yes.
lot of the world aren't really using email. And I think that we've started to use WhatsApp with great success to help people making bookings or making purchases.
Yes, that's a good one.
And I think that because when you do a WhatsApp, that it feels like you can bring a bit more personality to it.
And it's a bit less clunky and official.
It's much less clunky. It's much less official. It's much more chatty. You don't have to have a
Yeah.
subject line, dear so and so. And I think that this is a real weakness with. I mean, we are in a really, and it's often joked about, but this problem of not being able to get hold of your bank or your utility or your insurance is a real problem.
Yeah.
And it's not only a real problem for relatively able people, but it's a massive problem for older people.
Yeah.
And these stupid bots do not help. I mean, AI may well get to the point where it's really helpful, but the idea that I think that if any, and they pretend it's happening, but it's not. If any big company wanted to really make a difference, whether they're selling handbags or gas, if they could bring some people to the table to help their customers, that would be the massive change. And I think that there are ways that we can bring that back, because the idea of the shopkeeper or the publican or the restaurateur or whatever it is who's welcoming and who guides you through the process has almost completely disappeared from business. And it's astonishing that you can kind of, you could buy from the same retailer, spend £1,000 a year on, online with the business, buying shoes or clothes or whatever. You'd have no personal contact with them at all, nothing at all.
That's true.
And I think that there is a massive missed opportunity for this, and I think that is where a niche can be found.
But this is what I say. I think for you, it's the spaces and the environments and that aesthetic, but the people as well.
My main interest is people, Penny. I mean, I am, I wouldn't say I'm not really a people pleaser, in that if I've done something right, I really don't mind if people don't like me. And I've done quite a few things, that people don't like, and I have no problem with that. I mean, I think if I've done something, if I've been unreasonable to someone, I really do feel upset about what they might think about me. But I fundamentally want people to be comfortable and happy. And I think I always try to kind of draw the analogy in our businesses between, if you have someone around to your house for supper, right? And they just walk in, you go, all right, and they go, we can have a drink. Yeah, it's over there. And you've got no music on, you've got no lights on, and you haven't really got round to cooking anything. Then
don't introduce them to anyone.
That's insane. But if you do, what you have to try to do is to imagine your shop or your business, and I'm talking metaphorically, or your restaurant, as being like a really well-run dinner party, so that the people feel instantly welcome, even if they're anxious before they came. You've introduced them to someone, you've greeted them, you've made the atmosphere nice, you've got a nice drink for them. And I think that all businesses, it doesn't matter whether they're consultancies or, key cutters, or, handbag retailers or hotels or design agencies, they have to have that great sort of sense of, it being your house, even if it's a house online, it being a beautiful, comfortable, welcoming place. And I think that there are massive challenges for us as people who essentially exist so much online now. And of course, it's the best thing that you have, Penny, and the best thing that I probably have is our personalities. So we have to try and bring that personality into the real world. And the real world now is so much online. And I think that it's just a trick that's being missed time and time again. And, it is soul destroying dealing with so many businesses. And equally amazing that you could, as I say, spend £1,000 in 12 different transactions with an online business in a year for the sake
never
of
speak to
and never have any sense of who anyone was, or where they were, or what the place looked like, or what the process is, or any of that stuff. And so there are so many opportunities.
It's interesting as we're going into more, as you mentioned, with AI, it's like the robots and the bots, and they're going into more of that actually you don't need to ignore that, but to not forget and even stress even more the human and the people contact could be such a strength.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the world seems to be divided at the moment into people who think AI is going to lead to sort of catastrophic dystopia, or people who think it's going to change the world for the better. And I suspect the truth is somewhere in between the two. But
Yeah, I think a bit both.
There will always be a desire and a need for human interaction. It's just fundamental.
Yeah.
And that is such a great, we're talking niche here. That is such a great niche. And, one of the reasons I think that, talking about festivals as we were, I often think that one of the reasons why Glastonbury is so successful is that, it is obviously an amazing festival and a great weekend and all the rest of it, and it's bigger than the rest, but it's got the personality of the Evis family behind it.
Yeah.
And so every single person that goes through those gates knows who they are.
Yeah.
Kind of knows what they stand for.
And the whole story. And
the whole story. And, you're never going to get that at Reading or Leeds or whatever.
That's totally true. Because I was listening. Sorry.
There's a niche.
Yeah, because it comes from those people and what they stood for, and that his daughter's taking on what he's done.
This is why.
No, that's really interesting.
But it is a niche, and I think they understand that. They really understand that. They are. I think they kind of portray themselves as sort of slightly kind of relaxed, sort of.
You don't get that stuff done. They're making it look easy, but that is some.
It's a machine, that place, and it's the greatest. It is probably, in my experience, it's the greatest show on earth. But I think that those people are that family is so valuable in the marketing of that, and in the sense that we all connect with it. And I think if you go to Glastonbury and you don't know who Michael and Emily Evis are, then you've been living under a rock. I don't kind of know what you're doing there. And so that's a fascinating thing. I suppose it's in some ways what Richard Branson did, is managed to retain his, actually, I just realized I dreamt about Richard Branson last night.
Exclusive.
It wasn't erotic, I don't think. He managed to build these huge businesses, but his niche was his personality, and so we all felt that by going on his airline or going, I wouldn't say it's about his trains, but in lots of his businesses, we felt that, we were in a small, warm business, and so the niche of personality. Whether he delivered great airlines or whether he looked after his staff or whatever else. We did believe that he did through his personality.
And they're two classic cases of why niche doesn't need to be small
I don't think niche needs to be small at all. And I think that, I mean, the niches I love are the small things because I am I particularly love the making of things.
Yeah.
I'm someone who knows where everything that I wear and nearly everything that I eat and everything in my house is made or whatever, just because that really interests me. And I don't buy stuff from big companies on the whole, but it doesn't mean that it can't be.
Yeah.
And I think that that I think the Glastonbury example is a really interesting one. That's the biggest festival that we have certainly in this country, and probably one of the biggest ones in the world, if not the biggest one in the world. But it's
And
certainly the
it's
one
two humans that you,
we have a relationship with those
yeah.
people. As consumers of that business, we have a relationship with them. And I mean, I don't know if it still happens, but I can remember in the old days when Michael Eavis would sort of appear in his Land Rover, people would sort of burst into applause.
Is
You
that
know,
the dream, Charlie? Driving around Glendive.
it shows the love, doesn't it? And there's another thing. There's another little thing, actually, isn't it? I mean, isn't that a funny thing? Isn't it? Isn't it nice when people say nice things to you? I had a friend
Yes.
who had he had a big hotel in London called Number One Aldwych. It's called Gordon Campbell Gray, and then he had another two hotels. And he said that one of the things that, as a guest, that you should never forget to do is just when you check out, if things have been nice, just to say, things have been so nice here, and thanks to you guys for helping me when I, needs to book that taxi or whatever it is. And I think passing on good vibes. I mean, I've written about this, Penny, but I mean, here's another opportunity for niche: is why not actually try and remember to praise people every day in your business life, and
Well, you
build
know how
relationships.
much it feels when it comes back to you.
Oh, it's great, and we say it to kids, don't we? They bring home a kind of clay sort of lump, and we talk as if they've just made kind of a Ming vase, but then we kind of stop it as adults. And I think what a nice thing to say to the delivery driver, occasionally, listen, thanks so much for coming. I know we're out of the way, and I really appreciate it, and it's so great how you're always cheerful, and all that stuff. And I think in terms of building team, I often think about this. It's not just people who are employed by you, but it's also the dustbin men, the delivery person, the person who kind of checks your fire extinguishers or whatever. That it's really not difficult to say nice things to them, and I think that great leaders are masters of that. And of course, can you fake it? Probably not. Weirdly, because you're always
I think you always feel intention.
exactly, yeah.
I think you always feel it.
And I think that this is again a brilliant way of creating a niche business because not many people do it.
The
Not many
human
people,
touch.
just say thank you, nice to see you, how you doing, all that stuff. Human touch, yes. I mean, I didn't really expect to talk about human touch, but as is so often the case when you discuss these things, the thoughts become clear. But that is a serious niche, a real proper human touch.
Yeah. Well, I say as well for like as niche as a strategy, if you to put it that way. So a lot of the time when people are talking about brand strategy, it's like the competitors and what's everyone else doing and where are you positioning in that. And I'm just like, nah, just start with you and
But I always think with your
what do
niche,
you want to make and what do you want
yeah,
to do and
it's
what
the
do you want to
confidence.
change? And it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing.
I think it's the confidence to believe in your ideas and see them through, isn't it? And I think that if people are looking for niches, they don't have to be, just niches of idea or niches of consultancy or niches of design. There can be plenty of niches found within those businesses that are the way that you interact with your team or the way that you interact with people that pass through your business, be they delivery people or whatever, or any of those things. They are ways of finding unusual ways of doing things that distinguish you from other people, right?
I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of good, isn't it? I'm just thinking.
I think that's a lovely place to wrap this up. And thank
Well,
you
thank
so
you.
much. We
You're
went
welcome.
totally off piste, and I love it. It just was a great conversation.
It
And
was. I hope it hasn't been. I'm sorry. I know I talk a lot, but you have asked some
yeah, but
really interesting
it's
questions.
gems, so I don't stop you. No, it's been an absolute joy, and like I say, this was the last one for this year. And what a lovely, amazing finish. Thank you so much, Charlie.
Well, thanks, Penny. Lots of love to you, and
And you.
happy everything.
And we'll see you in Scotland
All
sometime,
right.
24.
Say hi to Graham as well.
I will
Graham's
do.
our other half, listeners. See you soon,
Thanks
Penny.
so
Thanks.
much.
Lots of
So
love. Bye,
much.
Daisy, too. Thanks for your help. Bye.